Hi, I'm Adrienne Rogers, Artistic Director of Product Club, and I'm going to show you how I like to do a reverse balayage using Product Club's contoured mesh sheets. Very helpful, great tool to use to separate the hair, and it makes this a very simple process. When you are doing reverse balayage, often I will do a reverse balayage on someone that is heavily highlighted and is ready to have a balayage look as opposed to a highlighted look. But this is also a great thing to use if you're trying to break up a single process and give it more of a modern look, bringing that depth back into the base of the hair and adding more dimension throughout the hair. It's a great way to really up the ante on your client's look. So whether you are taking an overly blonde person and trying to make them look like they have a balayage, or you're taking a single process that just needs more dimension, this is a great way to achieve modern hair color. So I'm working on this mannequin that is a blonde mannequin. I haven't highlighted her or anything, so it's sort of like a single processy sort of a look, and we want to add that dimension back in. We're going to start in the back of the mannequin's head, and I am going to section this out, and I'm not going to make my sectioning too complex. Most of the work is going to be done quickly, section by section, allowing the depth to come back in. So I'm parting this hair all the way down from the front to the back, and I'm going to take my first section down. Now you don't have to go too thin with these sections because it's not like you're foiling this. You're going to get a decent amount of hair that you can saturate easily with the color going all the way through, but enough that you're not working entirely too hard. All right, I'm gonna put my gloves on, and I'm going to start this horizontally. So when you are using the sheets, you want to start with the smaller side up to the top, and it has a contour to it, so you want to think about how you're going to wrap it around the head. And you can see that this is going to lay in right like that. Very helpful with the contours of the head, having a sheet designed to really work with the shape of the head. So when I'm doing a reverse balayage, I am going to mix my first glaze color darker than the natural base so that we can get some depth back in there. And I'm going to place my mesh sheet underneath, and I'm actually using the angled brush, especially down here, because I know that I can kind of get right into that base. This is the hardest one, the first one. So you're going to kind of get in there, and because I want to make sure that this is adhered to the mesh strip, I'm going to go down a little bit further. So I'm applying this through the hair, and then I'm going to give it an angle. So I want to put the depth. I'm building my pocket. So I'm placing this in this direction and applying the darker demi to the roots and then down in that sort of a shape. Now is when you can kind of customize. You could either go in with a lightener or you could use a light glaze. I'm going in with a very light glaze so that I can have these colors be nice and seamless together and have good flow. So I'm gonna take my lighter glaze. You could also use balayage lightener here, and I'm bringing it down lower onto the hair strand. So I'm paying attention to where the darker color was and then the lighter color, and then I'm just going to kind of brush up a little bit, bringing that light color up into the darker. If I pull this down this way, I'm going to pull the base down into it. So you want to think about, where do you want that depth to be? Do you want the depth to come lower, or do you want the lightness to move up? It's a great way to kind of, as you go, work increasing the design. I'm going to come directly on top with my next strip and place this here. The nice thing about these strips is that you can use quite a few of them when you're doing this, and I like to do that because then I really get better control with the hair. But I also feel good about it because I'm not wasting them. These strips can be rinsed and reused. So it's okay to use as many as you think you need to create what you're looking to create, because they are eco-friendly and can be reused. So I really like that about them. They rinse out very, very easily. Now I'm gonna use this as my next section. I'm just gonna hold that hair down, and I'm gonna make sure I get into my root area, bringing it down onto the mesh. You want a nice heavy application here because you don't want to miss any hair. There we go. And then I'm going to start varying how deep my pocket goes. So for this one, the first one, I did sort of a mid length of my pocket. And for this one, I'm gonna go a little bit higher up so that I have a little bit more lightness. Kind of look at the shape of the head, what you did in the previous one to decide where you're gonna go with the next. And once again, I'm gonna brush up just a little to blend that out. If you're concerned with getting too much color from the dark into the light bowl, you can keep a towel and you can brush your brush off, but I've never really had a problem with it. It's kind of a non-issue. Now, as I move up, I'm gonna section out this front piece just so that I can just work in the back, and then I'm going to continue moving up. For this one, I'm going to go almost all the way through, just to give that depth. But I'm not gonna put it just on the end in case those ends are very porous. When the hair is super porous, it's really going to absorb the color. So you wanna be careful that you don't have any contributing pigment in your formula that will get picked up by the light and bright if the hair is very, very blonde. It's an important thing to pay attention to. You don't want to put something that's gonna be picked up in the bleached bits. So when hair is truly porous, it's always going to grab ash tones. So you wanna be careful in your formulation. And if you're really worried about it, you can leave those little ends out and just put the lighter shade in so that you don't have to even worry about it. So I built a couple pockets and then I did one all the way through to give it that depth again. So here I am, I'm gonna continue to layer these up. And this next one, I'm going to build a bigger pocket again. Make sure that you don't make these too thin and delicate or it's gonna be really hard to see the impact. Coming through here, make sure you get that base. And then you want to think about how far you want that pocket to come down. So here I'm going to kind of travel the pocket down that way. This is a very modern way to bring depth back into the hair, as opposed to a low light. This is a great way to give that balayage look if you're feeling too blonde, and really just let the depth cradle the light. Coming through. So we built that pocket up in this area and the lightness is going to go around. Now for personal ease, so that I'm not going around the curve of the head, I'm going to use another sheet here and I'm going to continue to move up. Then I'm going to turn the head and we're going to start bringing this into it as well, not go too far. So I'm going to get a fresh sheet because the curvature of the head is sort of pulling this around, and I want to make sure that I get a good adhesion to the top. So we're going to start it again up here. If you feel like you're kind of wrapping around the head, you don't have to do sheet on sheet. You can come in and do a fresh grouping. I'm going to put a fresh one in so that I can handle the hair better. There we go. And now I can bring my hand underneath so I can get that control back. And for this one, I'm going to bring the pocket down a little bit more. If you're having trouble controlling the hair, you can use your comb and kind of comb it down. And then we're going to bring that pocket a little deeper. Once you get the liquid on, it really helps adhere that hair and keep that connected to the strips. And then through those ends. And then I'm going to put another one on top. Now, as I get to this area where I'm kind of doing this hair can come over, I'm going to turn the head a little bit and we'll start working on the front. Now you want to think about keeping brightness too. So really be careful in the front of the head, making sure you still have that brightness for the client. Often I will carve the whole front section out and not do that at all. And this is what I'm gonna do here. I'm gonna leave that out so I get that nice strong hairline coming through, making sure that I don't overly darken the hair. The contoured sheets can be used wrapping around. It gives you great control. And here, I'm gonna get this right there. Building out the pocket. And then coming through. Each layer going on top. These are very comfortable for the client to wear. They're super lightweight. Very easy to take out, will save you a lot of time. I'm gonna carve out my hairline and just drop it over. So for this one, I'm gonna go a little shallow with my depth because I don't want it to be too dark. And then coming up, making sure that it's all softened. If you're very worried about the blending, you could always have a dry brush on your side and you could blend in the center, or a blending brush just to make sure. But typically, especially if the two mediums are the same, if they're both the same demi-permanent, they blend very nicely and it's not an issue. So now as I get up higher to the head, I'm gonna come in and do this back section. Continuing to move through. And you want to kind of think about what you had done in the previous section so that you can stay on target. And this one I'm going to do sort of shallow because now I've built some depth underneath and we'll have a little bit of brightness pop over. When the hair is super light, you want to really think about your formula and how dark you want that contrast to be. You may want to go the same level as their natural base color, or you may want to go a little bit lighter, just so that it doesn't create too much depth. Or if your client's looking to go a little darker, it's a great way to give them that while still having that brightness in their hair. Now for the next one, I'm actually going to go almost to the ends like we did earlier, and then just leave those light ends out, just to have a little bit of depth. And for this one, I'm gonna go much thinner because these little connecting points will help it make sense through the hair and not look too ombre-esque. Coming through here. Letting the angle brush help me out here. And this one I'm going to bring pretty low. Make sure you fully saturate. If the hair is not fully saturated, it may have a spotty appearance when it comes out, so you want to really make sure that you move it through the hair. I'm almost to the ends now, and just in case, I'm going to do the light one on the ends. Now in this case, I might drag this down just a little bit just to soften that, but I'm protecting myself by not having it be too light. This one goes on top. Coming around to the front again. I'm going to start moving this stuff back. I'm going to grab this section, making sure to take out my hairline. Drop it down. I'm going to put this one on a fresh sheet just so I can start moving this back. Avoiding that front hairline at all costs. When you are finished in the bowl, if you want to do a little bit of a root melt in that front hairline, that's a good time to do that because then you can watch that hair and make sure that it's not grabbing it or going too dark. start to slide that back. Just kind of working in a horseshoe sort of a pattern, working my way around, varying the lengths or the depth that you take that deepness. I kind of like to look at the round of the head and think about where it is, so I'm going to come in kind of like that. And then coming in. This is a good time to do any corrective work that you may need on the end. If you are refining a tone through the ends of the hair and the mid strands, it's a great way to do it, because you can control warmth or put warmth in if it's too empty looking. One after the other. And at this point, I'm going to pull this whole hairline out on the top and tuck it under. There we go. And I'm going to move the head around a little bit and start working this forward a little bit. So for this top section, I'm going to over direct it slightly toward the front of the face so that when the hair falls this way, you have a better picture of how that's going to sweep around as you go. So for this one, we're going to take this frontal section out, place it down and out of the way. There we go. Integrate that back in. And then this is going to come in underneath here, placing this hair on top. Getting the glaze in at the base. It's nice because this also will work as a barrier to protect the other hair. Just slide it up. And then back here, I'm going to bring in this depth a little bit more. So you can build up the pocket, but that it's not too deep. It's a good thing to understand what your client is really looking for. Are they just feeling too light? Are they wishing that they had a more of a balayage look? Are they looking to build that depth in? These are all important questions. Does your client want to be considered blonde or blonde? That's a very good question, because if you know the answer to that, then you can really tailor the work to them. And I am very reluctant to bring any depth all the way through in the front sections, because that's where people like to see that light, and that's where nature would give you that light. So it's a good thing to always lean to what nature would do. Nobody looks better than when they're a child, so if you can mimic childlike hair, it's a win. In. And this one I'll bring down a little bit more, but again, when I'm working in that front section, I'm pretty careful about that. It's not fun to have someone freak out that their hair is too dark, and everyone has been there. You can always add more depth. These are really nice to work with. Coming through. And this one I'm going to do a very tiny bit of a pocket, because I've done two with pockets, and now I want to almost just do the base and then all of this light. You just want to mix it up, making sure that you have an idea of what you've been doing and what may be missing. I want to mix it up a little bit. So this I'm going to come down just a little. And then come in with the light. If you have a very blonde person that wants low lights, but they're also that kind of a client that freaks out about any depth, you can do a low light like this. You can use these, place these in, and do it just the base and give it a little pocket of depth and then let that be light. Because a lot of times people that think that their hair is too light and they want more depth, they really are just looking for internal depth. They're not looking for complete low light. So it's a great way to give them that without bringing that depth all the way through. So now at the top, this one's gonna be a light one as well, because I know I have a few pockets of depth underneath here. Just gonna put this on the base, a little bit below the sheet, just so it's anchored in properly. You can see how easily these go in. They just kind of hold the hair. Once the liquid is on there, they stay really nice. Very easy to use and comfortable. If you're doing lightening in these, like if you're doing the base and then adding a little bit of balayage lightener through the ends, they're a good heat conductor and really help the hair lift properly. It's a versatile way to get dimension in the hair. Coming here, I'm going to build this pocket a little bit over the round of the head. You can see I'm allowing myself to use quite a few of these. Quick rinse, they're ready to go again. I'm gonna do a very thin piece, almost all the way through, just to give that little connectivity. So if you have a single process client that redheads, brunettes, whatever it may be, if they're looking to just deepen up their hair a little bit, this is actually a great way to do it because it really has nice dimension to it without completely changing their hair. Bringing this lower onto the hair strand, and then wrapping these obviously incredibly porous ends in the lighter glaze. The beauty of the glaze as well is because it's acidic, it's gonna make that hair nice and shiny and tighten that cuticle. So the client's gonna be thrilled. Now we're coming through this top section and you wanna think about how you wanna handle this. You know, you wanna kind of see how the client wears their hair, see if you wanna subdivide this. Might bring that one over to the front because that'll probably go that way. And then this one here, I'm gonna build a smaller pocket, but I'm gonna keep it on the angle here. So it's almost like you can visualize how you would place that balayage lightener in. You're just doing the reverse. You're putting the base in, and then you're bringing the lightness in next to it. Classic highlights really actually need quite a bit of maintenance, but balayage is less maintenance. It grows out nicer, it has a softer look. So if your client is tired of the high level of maintenance that they're doing, this is a great way to help them transition. I'm gonna pull this piece down, kind of check it out. I'm gonna go about there. Visually mapping it out for yourself before you apply. Like, think about it, look at it, decide how you want to put it in. It will actually help you be much faster. And then here's our final one. Gonna kind of think about how that goes. And I think this one I'm gonna do pretty shallow too, just to put that pocket up there, but so it swings through the top with nice movement. So you can see how fast the contoured sheets went in. When she's finished processing, one of the amazing things about this is it comes down so easily. You can pull the whole thing out. It's not a timely undo like origami. It's very easy to come out. And then these rinse off very easily with just water, and you are able to get that nice bit of depth in there with a nice innovative technique to help you have a reverse balayage. So here's our finish of our reverse balayage on a blonde single process mannequin. You can see we've built up some nice pockets of depth coming through, but allowed the lightness to exist as well. This is incredibly effective on a highly highlighted client, a client that comes in all of the time and is very, very blonde and is ready to transition to the modern balayage look. By applying these pockets of depth throughout the hair, allowing the transitions to be soft and seamless, you're really going to make it a more sophisticated look for your client.